Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius. Today we're going to talk about some very awesome stuff. We have a video game about factory building, a book about inflation and saving money, and we have a totally awesome guest. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Mr. Benton Crane. Mr. Benton is a chief executive officer of the Harmon Brothers. They make all those cool viral videos on YouTube and Facebook.
Thanks for having me on the show, Tiberius. I'm excited to be here.
You're welcome. And today we're going to start off with the video game of the week, and this is going to be a build.
And now it's time for the video game of the week.
And now it's time for the video game of the week. Today's video game is Factory Simulator. This game is made by the Gaming Glove Studios. Because it is on Roblox, you are able to play it on PC, Mac, Xbox, and even your cell phone. And it is free. This is the only game made by Gaming Glove Studios. Redraft. This is the only game made by Gaming Glove Studios, and it is complicated. So first off, I get in the game and you see an empty plot of land and some rocks and trees. You click on Harvest and click on the rocks. You go to your inventory and see a cell zone square. Then you can place it down on the square and then drop off your rocks on. So now that gives you some money. With some money, you can purchase miners and tree farms and even cutters and presses. These machines are used to process the material to make it more valuable before it is dropped into the cell zone. You can use conveyor belts to move all the products around, kind of like a factory. As I was going through the game, I asked my dad to play. We are very competitive. Now, this is kind of his game. Within half an hour, he already passed me and was building a mass factory. Now, as of me writing this review, he had purchased everything in the game and pretty much beat the game. My only issue is that you can go only 2 levels up when building. I give Factory Simulator 10 out of 10 stars because you can enjoy creating your own factories and you still get to do some mining while you get to wait in design and to build more items. And now it's time for the book of the week, The Turtle Twins and the Creature from Jekyll Island. This book was written by Connor Boyack. I got to interview him over a year ago, and he was very, very cool. Let me read to the back of the book. In fact, Benton, would you like to do the honors?
Absolutely. What kind of creature can steal from you? Join Ethan and Emily Tuttle in their exciting third adventure as they uncover the curious mystery of how a powerful creature is stealing their grandparents' hard-earned savings, and how the twins are also being controlled by the same creature without even knowing it.
Oh, wow. So first off, this is not an AR book. I got this from my grandfather, and each time I read a Turtle Twins book, I seem to learn something new. So this time, I learned about money. Now, we all need and want things, and we have to pay money for it. So I knew right away that this was going to be a fun book. So the book starts off with the Turtle Twins helping their grandpa collect honey to sell at the local fair. So they worked hard and collected a ton of honey and put it in jars. But then they went to the movies, and Grandma talked about how the tickets and food cost much more than it did when they were kids. They blamed it on the creature from Jekyll Island. After asking about the creature, Grandpa explained that way back in the day, people used gold coins for money. And the rich that made the coins would shave off the edges to steal the value and make more coins for free. When the workers found out, they were mad that they had been cheated and added ridges to the side of the coins, so you could tell if someone shaved off the sides and stopped the rich from cheating them. Well, in 1910, a number of wealthy bankers had a secret meeting on Jekyll Island and made an ultimate bank called the Federal Reserve. They could print money anytime they wanted, and when they printed lots of money, prices of things went up even though they were worth the same as the day before. This is called inflation. This steals the value of your savings and makes your current money able to buy less. Then they got the government to pass laws to tell everyone to use their money they printed instead of gold or silver or even barter. Barter is when you trade goods. So just kind of like the ridges and the coins, but the people made barter clubs, garden swaps, and digital currencies like bitcoins to stop high prices from people from cheating. My dad even has bitcoins too. Who knew? Well, I give the Tuttle Twins and the creature from Jekyll Island 10 out of 10 stars, and I'm trying to learn how to run my own business and how to earn my own money, and it is always good to read books that show how to save your money and use it wisely. My dad said that we have a lot more talking about barter and using money. And well, that tells me that other kids' dads might want to show their kids this book. You can learn more about the Tuttle Twins on their website or on Amazon.
Tiberius, did you know that my team and I are making a cartoon based on the Tuttle Twins books?
Really? I didn't know that.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see it.
Me too.
And now it's time for our interview of an interesting person. Today's guest is going to be so much fun. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Mr. Benton Crane. Benton is the CEO, the big cheese, of the Harmon Brothers. They did the crazy Squatty Potty and Purple Mattress videos, both that we have at the house. So first off,
Hey, I'm impressed.
My bad.
My bad, I cut you off.
So first off, how are you enjoying being on the show?
This is a lot of fun, Tiberius. I am so impressed with your energy.
Thank you. Okay, so I have to ask. Your bio lists a ton of jobs that you have done, from teacher to research analysis to CEO. Which one is the most that you have enjoyed the most?
Probably my current job, CEO at Harmon Brothers. I get to work on lots of really fun projects, and I get to work with lots of really funny people.
Cool. So your main job is the CEO of the Harmon Brothers, which you just talked about. Well, what got you interested in marketing?
Marketing is telling great stories. So sometimes people think that when you just want to sell a product, you just talk about the product. But what you really want to do is tell the story behind the product. And once you get into the storytelling, that's where it gets fun.
Okay. So when you first started, did you get to design the videos right away, or did you just have to start with something else first?
Well, originally my role was to do all of the numbers and the math and the data analytics behind the videos. So everyone sees the videos and the art that's behind them, but what they don't understand is that art is always driven by and informed by math that happens behind the scenes. So we come up with some crazy idea like a pooping unicorn, and then we test it and we look at the numbers and we say, do the numbers tell us that this will actually work? And if the numbers tell us that it will work, then we say, hey, this is a good idea, let's go with it. And then we build the crazy pooping unicorn.
Huh. Weird. So what was the best part about being in the marketing industry?
In my job, I get to work with lots of really, really funny people. And these are people who are stand-up comedians or they're improv. And so they're really, really good at making people smile. They're really good at making people laugh. And we bring those comedians in and we help them, or they help us tell these great stories, but in a funny and an entertaining way. And so it's really fun to get to watch people smile and laugh.
Funny. Okay, so how do you get the inspiration to create ideas for the next marketing video that you are going to make?
You watch lots of YouTube videos and see what other funny things are out there on the internet, and those trigger ideas. And then you brainstorm with lots of other creative people. And
That's really true.
yeah, that's how the fun stuff comes up.
Okay, so what is the hardest part about being in the marketing industry?
Well, there's lots of hard things about marketing. But I would say probably the trickiest one is figuring out how to give people stuff that they want to watch rather than stuff that you think they want to watch. So you know how sometimes when you watch a commercial break and you see a commercial that's really boring and you're like, oh, when is this going to end? That's an advertiser who thought they were giving you something good, but it turned out that it wasn't good. Okay. And the challenge as a marketer is figuring out how to make sure that we give the viewer something that they're excited about and something that they enjoy watching.
Okay. So your bio says that you worked for the U.S. Census Bureau from doing statistics. Do they really keep track of all the people in the U.S.?
Yeah. Did you know that the Census Bureau, once every 10 years, they count everyone in the country to see how many people live in the country and where they live? And that's actually a task that was outlined by the founding fathers when they wrote the Constitution. Because, because every state gets a certain number of congressmen, and the number of congressmen that they are assigned is driven by the number of people that live in the state. And so that's why they do a recount every 10 years so that they can establish which states get which number of congressmen.
Okay. So did that job teach you anything that made it easier to work in marketing?
Yeah, I learned a lot of data skills in that job. I learned how to read statistics and how to calculate statistics. I learned a lot about how to use spreadsheets. And those are all skills that I brought with me to this job so that I can look at the math behind the stories and the advertisements to see what works and what doesn't work.
Okay. So since you do so many jobs, do you find it hard to juggle them all?
You know, in the beginning when we were small, I wore lots of hats and did lots of jobs. But as we grew, each time we got a little bit bigger, I would look at all my jobs and I would say, okay, I need to replace myself and let someone else take this job. And I'm going to try to find somebody who can do it better than me. And so I think the first person I hired was an accountant to come in and do the accounting so that I wouldn't have to do that job anymore. And later I hired managers and I hired salespeople and I hired all sorts of people to come in and replace the jobs that I was doing, and they could do them better than me. So now that we've grown, I don't have so many jobs anymore.
Okay. So now I first heard about you because you are the executive producer for the Untitled Twins TV. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so I loved your review of the Untitled Twins book, Tiberius, and I'm excited that you got to interview Connor Boyack, the author, last year. So Connor is a friend of mine, and he has been admiring our work at Harmon Brothers for several years, and we've been admiring his work on the Untitled Twins for several years. And so when it was time for him that he wanted to make a TV show out of it, it was a natural fit for him to partner up with us because we have all the great comedians and all the great storytellers to bring that to life. So his books, I would describe as they're probably like 85 to 90% education and probably call it 10% entertainment. But when we make the cartoon, we're going to flip that on its head. We're going to go 90% entertainment. We're going to make it really funny. We're going to make it exciting. Kids are going to want to watch it just because it's really fun. But then we're also going to sneak in that education where you'll learn those great principles that Connor teaches in the books. So it's really exciting. The team has written 6 episodes. 4 of them are in animation. And after that, we have 6 more episodes that are all fully funded and that we're going to be starting on here shortly. So I think by this fall, we'll start releasing the first episode. It's going to be really exciting.
Yay! So when you were a kid, what did you want to do when you grew up? Did you always know that you were going to be a CEO of a super successful company?
No, I didn't. My parents were farmers, and so I was born on a little farm in Idaho, and I loved to feed the pigs and the cows. And in the wintertime, my dad would drive milk truck where he would go around to all the dairies in the area and pump the milk from the cows into the truck, and then he would take it to the cheese factory to be turned into milk. And I used to ride along with him in the milk truck, and I thought that was so much fun that when I grew up, I wanted to be a milkman.
Okay. So, kind of run me through it. What kind of tasks does a CEO have to do on a daily basis?
That's a great question. I think my biggest task is to, we use the word evangelize, which is a big word for talking a lot about what we as a company are trying to accomplish. And so I go speak at conferences, and I go on podcast interviews, and I talk about what we're trying to accomplish at Harmon Brothers, which is sharing better stories with the world. It's teaching advertisers how to be great storytellers. And that's one of my biggest roles as a CEO.
Wow. So, do you need a lot of training to work in this job?
Well, I learn a lot through the mistakes that I make. As with anything, you try new things, and you read books, and you talk to people who know what they're doing, and then you go dive in and you do the work. And as you do it, you get some stuff right and you get some stuff wrong. And so the stuff that you get right, you keep going with, and the stuff that you get wrong, you learn from and you change. So yeah, it takes time.
It does. Well, if you could think of one thing that would make your job easier, what would it be?
One thing that would make my job easier. I would say sometimes I deal with insomnia, where my mind just races so much that I have a hard time sleeping. And so sometimes I'm tired and fatigued. And so if I could get past my insomnia and sleep better, that would make my job easier.
Okay. So what was the one video that you made that you're most proud of?
There's lots of them. Probably one of my favorite videos we've done is the fiber fix video, where we threw cars off of a cliff to demonstrate how strong fiber fix is. That was the dream come true for me, to get to throw cars off of a cliff. What little kid wouldn't want to throw some cars off of a cliff?
So, if you could do marketing for any client in the world, who would be your dream client?
Probably Tesla. I love how Tesla is changing the world in so many ways, not just electric cars, but the way that solar energy is collected, the way that mass transportation in terms of trucking, cargo industry is going to be disrupted by Tesla, and also self-driving cars. That's an industry that will be disrupted by Tesla. So I think they're doing so many cool things, and I would love to help them with their marketing.
Okay. So what was the first job that you ever had?
So my first job, as a little kid, I did lots of odds and end jobs like paper routes, and I baked bread and sold it to my neighbors and did all sorts of fun things like that. But my first official job was when I turned 14. I worked at a candle factory that made these candles that were in glass jars. And before you pour the wax in the jar, you have to take a wick and put the wick in the jar. And there's a little metal tab that looks kind of like a dime. And you glue that metal tab to the bottom of the jar so that it sticks in the glass jar, and then you pour the wax in around it. And so my first job, and I got paid 5 cents per jar to glue wicks inside.
How fast did it take you?
If I remember correctly, I could make about $7 per hour. So let's see, that's 20 jars per dollar. 20 times 7 is 140. So I guess I could do about 140 jars per hour.
What? That's lower than minimum wage.
Back then, it was higher than minimum wage back then.
Huh. Weird. Well, was there anything you learned from that job to help you be a better CEO?
I learned hard work. There were a lot of other kids that tried that job, and they would go and they would glue the wicks in the jars for about an hour, and then they would get bored and they'd want to leave and go play with their friends. But I was really determined to make money, and so I just put my head down and went to work, and I could glue wicks in jars for 8 hours at a time. And my boss was so impressed with me that I only had to glue wicks for a few months before I got promotions, and I got to move on and do other tasks at the candle factory. And I ended up working there all the way until I was 18, and so I had lots and lots of different tasks and lots of different responsibilities.
Okay, so what is the craziest thing that has happened while you were doing your passion?
Craziest thing that's happened while I was doing my passion. So my passion, one of my passions, is to spend time in the outdoors. I love to hike and I love to bike and do fun things like that. And probably the craziest thing that I got to do last year, I took my son. He's pretty close to your age.
Huh.
I took my son and we went to Yosemite National Park, and we got to go sleep. We camped out on a cliff 2,700 feet off the ground above the valley in Yosemite National Park.
Oh,
And that was a wild, crazy experience for both of us.
that's really cool. So who helped motivate or inspire you the most in following your dreams?
I have lots of people who help motivate and inspire me, but one of the earliest ones was probably my dad. So when I was in high school, I loved working on cars. I loved fixing cars. But most people consider that, at least back then, they kind of considered it a lowbrow profession. That, if you wanted to make something of yourself, you needed to become a doctor or a lawyer or an attorney. Being a mechanic who works on cars was kind of considered a low-class, blue-collar job. But I loved it. I had lots of fun with it, and I was intrigued by it. And so my dad encouraged me to pursue it. And so when other people were telling me not to do it, my dad told me to go ahead and do it. And I ended up becoming really, really good at it. And I won awards in auto mechanics. And that really launched my career for me. It taught me so many great lessons about problem solving and hard work and other things.
Wow. So what advice would you give my listeners if they want to grow up and be either a CEO or work in a marketing business?
The advice that I would give is to work really, really hard and to focus on making whoever you work for really successful. Oftentimes people get so caught up in trying to make themselves successful, and instead they forget that they need to make whoever is above them successful, and then their success will follow just naturally.
Okay. Well, if you could go back 10 years and tell yourself something, what would it be?
10 years ago, I'd probably tell myself to go to the gym every day so that I don't gain these extra pounds.
Okay. Well, what was the biggest mistake you ever made, and how did it change you as a person?
Biggest mistake I've ever made. Let's see. I've made lots of mistakes in my life. It's probably hard to narrow it down to the biggest one. But let me think and see if I can give you a good example of a mistake that I've made. Oh, okay. I thought of a good one for you, Tiberius.
Ooh. What is it?
So I remember I made a mistake when I was, let's see, how old was I? I'm sure this wasn't the biggest mistake of my life, but it was a pretty big mistake at that point in my life. So I was probably about 11 or 12 years old, and I had this bicycle that had a banana seat on it, so I could carry two people on my bike. And my little brother, who was about 3 or 4 years old, he wanted to go for a ride with me on my bike. And my mom told me not to take him because he was too little and it was too dangerous. But I ignored her and I let him climb on the back of my bike on that banana seat. And I went tearing off around the neighborhood. And so he was riding on the back seat with his legs kind of dangling because my feet were on the pedals. And so his legs were kind of dangling there. And he accidentally stuck his foot in the spokes of my bike in the back wheel. And the spokes just tore his foot to shreds. The heel of his foot just got all torn up and it was all bloody and everything. And so he was really hurt. So I had to take him home. And initially I tried to fabricate a lie to my mom about I tried to make up some other story about what had happened because I was so scared and that I was going to be in huge trouble because I didn't listen in the first place. And so I made two big mistakes there. First, I didn't listen to my mom, and then second, I told a lie about what happened. But my mom was able to get my little brother all bandaged up, and his foot healed after a couple of weeks, and it ended up being okay. But those were mistakes that I felt pretty terrible about, and at that point in my life, they were some of my biggest.
It's weird. So, when you are not working with making videos or TV shows, what do you do for fun?
I love to go play outside. I love the mountains. I love to hike and bike, and canyoneer, and just spend time outdoors. When it's wintertime, I like to ski. When it's summertime, I like to camp and do things like that.
Okay. So, do you play video games? And if you do, what is your favorite one?
Sorry, Tiberius, but I'm not a gamer. I don't have a favorite video game, and I don't play them, unfortunately.
Darn it. I know everyone might have read a book, but what is your favorite book?
Well, I love books. I read lots of books, but I think probably my
Total Twin series.
What was that?
Let me guess, the Total Twin series.
Yep. I've read the Total Twin series for my kids. We like those books at our house. I think one of my favorite books of all time is Where the Red Fern Grows, which is a story about a little boy who has to work really hard to earn money to buy 2 dogs, and then his 2 dogs become his hunting pals, and they go out in the woods and hunt raccoons together, and it's just a phenomenal book that I love so much. I read it when I was a kid. I read it when I was a teenager. I read it when I was an adult, and now I've read it to my kids.
Oh, wow. Well, is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you?
No, I think you did a great job with your interview, Tiberius. You had lots of really great questions.
Well, you're welcome. So, do you have a website or Facebook for my listeners that want to follow you?
The easiest place to follow me is probably on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. So look for Benton Crane on LinkedIn. And of course, if you want to follow what we're doing at Harmon Brothers, just check us out at harmonbrothers.com.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, so what is that one question? That one question that you think I forgot to ask you. The one question.
One question that I think you forgot to ask me. Probably an important question would be, what is my favorite dessert?
Well, what is it?
My favorite dessert is Cherry Garcia ice cream. It's a tradition that my wife and I have, that we eat Cherry Garcia ice cream on date night.
Huh. Weird. But cool. Well, thank you so much, Benton, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And now it's time for Math Corners. Thank you so much, Benton, for your helping me with Math Corners. Well, today we're going to talk about data analysis. So I've been doing my IXL.com math questions over the summer, and while I've been waiting to be able to do analysis. See, my mom and I watch Numbers. This is a show about the FBI and how they work with the professor to analyze the data of crimes to solve them. So what this is analysis. The dictionary says it is to examine carefully and inspecting data with the goal of discovering useful information. So the first thing you have to do analysis is you have to have the data. In the TV show, the data comes from the FBI, and they provide lots of data to sort through. In real life, you have to collect the data. So if you want to analyze the number of birds that would land on a lamppost in a year, someone would have to sit there and count how many times a bird lands on the lamppost. They could record the type of bird and which month it was, though. And they could even record if it was daytime or nighttime. Each element is recorded and that could take a much more detailed analysis. After you have the data, you put it in a chart. A few weeks ago, we talked about charting and graphing. It is very important to have correct information down in the chart, and that is neat enough to read. After you have the data, you get to analyze it. With the bird on the poll data, you can determine if more birds land on the poll during the day or the night. You can determine if robins like the poll more than vultures, and even which months are more popular for landing on the poll. After you do the analysis, you can then use that information to look for patterns to predict future behavior. Well, this way we can predict if you put a camera filming the poll, which type of birds you will find, and which days are better to turn the camera on. So Benton, do you know all about how to record and analyze data in a chart?
Yeah, there's 3 parts. So the first part, and you covered these pretty well. The first part is how to collect and store and organize all that data. Sometimes it comes from watching and observing birds like you talked about. Other times it's coming from website data. Whenever you browse the web, everywhere you go, data is being kept about which websites you're looking at. And there's data that comes from the sensors in our phones, or right now I'm wearing a Fitbit and it keeps data about how many steps I take and how my heart rate is and those sort of things.
True.
So that's the first part, is collecting and storing that data. The second part, like you said, is analyzing it, figuring out what it means and what can we learn from it. And then the third part is how to tell a story about that data. And that can be done with charts, it can be done with graphs, it can be done with infographics, it can be done through video, it can be done through speech, all sorts of different ways to tell a story behind what we learned from the data. So those are the 3 aspects of data analysis.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Benton, for your help with Math Corners.
My pleasure.
And now it's time for the Heart of the Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the heart of the lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. This week we're going to talk about nobility. For me, I think nobility is remembering we are God's special possessions and we are acting in a noble way, showing courage and honor. The qualities of nobility are goodness, virtue, honor, generosity, and selflessness. So last weekend, I got up early and decided to let my mom and dad sleep in. I got my IXL math questions. It was very quiet so that they could rest. That was selfless. I also think writing books is very noble. Like Turtle Twins books. I mean, you never know. It is kind of like reporting and interviewing. It is great to know cool stuff, but when you write it down, you are sharing it with other people, and sharing knowledge is very noble. So Benton, did you see or use nobility at all this week?
Great question. Yeah, I did see nobility. So my son, his name is Kyle, and he's 10 years old. I saw him get up early this morning and go out and mow the lawn without being asked. And I thought that was a very noble act of him to just see that something needed to be done, and he jumped in to do it.
What if he hurt himself?
He didn't.
How?
He's good at mowing the lawn.
Okay. Well, of all of the Heart of the Lion virtues, which is your favorite?
Probably integrity. I think when we are integrity, when we're full of integrity, that's not being honest, but it's being complete.
Okay.
And in fact, the word integrity has Latin roots to the word integral or integral, and in the Latin languages. So I speak Portuguese, and when you say whole grain, you call it an integral grain, because that means whole and complete. So I like the word integrity for that reason, because it stands for completeness.
Okay. Well, it is important to try and be lion strong in everything we do, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Mr. Benton Crane for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking with you today, and I cannot wait to see the first season of the new Tuttle Twins TV show. Thanks for having me, Tiberius. It's been such a pleasure to be here.
You have great energy, and you prepared great questions for this interview. You keep up the great work.
Well, you're welcome. And be sure to listen to us next week on the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy. That's rapping, boy.